Welcome to Brothers Talking, a monthly program that brings a cross-generational group of Black men together, creating a safe and brave space for honest, fearless discussion about the issues and challenges and fears faced by Black men. The goal of Brothers Talking is to amplify and explore the lived experiences of Black men, the pain, joy, success, failure, and the resulting opportunities for self-growth and self-discovery. An incredible group of brothers are joining me on this film journey of conversation and community, self-awareness and self-actualization. Nonprofit CEO Jeffrey Beckham, Pastor Dr. Aaron J. McLeod, Legislative Associate Justice Pugh, and business owner Joshua Sanders. Brothers, let's continue this journey together. Appreciate y'all being here.
When you commit to authentic voices, when you trust powerful stories, recognition follows. 2 Emmy nominations, the first in our history. Stream the Emmy-nominated programs now on cantv.org or on the CanTV Plus app. CanTV. Experience the power of community television.
Cable cord cutting, funding rollbacks, growing efforts to silence community voices. The stakes have never been higher for a community television station. Since 1983, CanTV has proudly served as Chicago's home for truth, access, and accountability. From City Hall to your front door, we make sure your story is told. But to keep it local and to keep it real, we need you. Please visit cantv.org and donate today. The future of Chicago's voice is in your hands.
For generations, Black men have carried stereotypes about their sexuality, myths that have shaped how they're seen, how they're desired, and even how they're allowed to express emotion or vulnerability. Those myths have been rooted in racism, fear, and hypersexualization. Narratives that trace back to slavery and still echo in media, relationships, and everyday life. A recent study published in Sexuality Research and Social Policy found that societal pressures contribute to high rates of sexual repression and internal conflict among Black men. But behind those myths and misnomers are men, real men, navigating shame, confusion, and sometimes pain in trying to define for themselves what it means to be whole, to be intimate, and to be free. This month, the brothers and I are talking about it, openly, honestly, and without judgment. What does liberation look like when it comes to Black male sexuality? How do we move from stereotypes and stigma to authenticity and self-acceptance? Welcome back, brothers. Let's just start at the beginning with the roots. Black men have been hypersexualized and stereotyped since slavery, portrayed as either predators or symbols of physical dominance. How have those narratives shaped the way you've seen yourself or how you've been seen by others? Who wants to kick us off?
Like, for me, I don't think it was ever about us. I think them, calling us hypersexual or whatever was just a tool for them to, create a mantra of us being predators or a mantra of us being, some type of bad influence around society or whatever. And in that way, they're able to then, in turn, use violence against us. So I don't think it was ever really about sexuality. I think, in essence, it was just a tool.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, growing up, watching TV, you got your favorite shows, you got your favorite cartoons, and I remember I see, the one brother that would be in whatever the show is, and always be like, oh, that character's me, so you be with your friends, you're like, oh, I'm the Black Power Ranger, you know what I'm saying, whatever the show is. And when you're young, you're idolizing these characters for how cool they are or their superpowers, or in some cases, getting ladies. But then it becomes, as you get older, and then you don't have, you're not on Cartoon Network anymore, right. You see these versions of yourself where it's not like just looking up to see yourself in these people, but you're looking up and you're like, wait, am I seeing myself, or is that me, or is that not me at all? So yeah, I think media has an interesting way of kind of shifting. In my experience, as I was like growing up and becoming a man, and yeah, you know, I realized why there's some things that, you know, you're not allowed to watch when you're young, but I think it kind of begs these questions around identity when that shift happens with the things that you're consuming and things that you're watching.
Yeah. Anything you all want to chime in?
I mean, I just think of like the magical Negro trope, right? Like this concept, whether it's John Coffey or Bagger Vance or, you know, historical context, even back to black exploitation films where you had Huggy Bear and this idea of the pimp. There was always this idea that in media, a black male had some form of superpower, right? Like whether it was a good superpower or sometimes one that could lead to different outcomes. And I think a lot of young black men growing up identified as that. I even remember those things trickled down into other like forms of the media and content that we consume. You know, you think about the episode of like Fresh Prince where Will's about to marry Lisa and they're in Vegas the first time and it's Shaft, right? And like that kind of I wanted to know who Shaft was, right? The coolest man, right? And I think you see it as it's like shaping how we identify ourselves, and the young men want to ascribe to those things. Where it's like, I got to get the most girls, or I got to be some form of a super athlete, superhero, super this, that creates unrealistic expectations for young men as they start to like condition themselves and socialize.
Yeah, I think back to this intimidation factor. My grandmother from Virginia, who was a colorist and reminded me of my physique as a person, growing up in a white neighborhood, of the social boundaries that I need to be aware of, even as a younger child. But the logic around it never really made sense. When you want to be in community or be in community with folks who may not understand you, moving it forward, when you begin to learn about Frederick Douglass, when you begin to learn about Paul Robeson, in particular in the way in which J.A. Rogers talked about his freshman year at Rutgers, they broke 3 of his bones trying to make the team. Then the next year he came out and made the team and he broke 3 other people's bones. This intimidation factor about who we naturally are, who we become, becomes a myth that I think people misappropriate intentionally to hold us back from just being who we naturally are.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Having gone to PWIs for undergrad and for law school as well, I remember just like how particularly white women treated certain black men at those schools. Particularly they were athletes, you know, in that regard. So when we talk about like, not only how has it shaped you individually, but how others see you, I mean, I think that is one of the things where I'm like, it's funny to see folks like rooting for, you know, SEC football teams, but would not have them over for dinner, right? And some of those fathers, the boosters, you know, root for that person too, but they don't want them in the house because you know, that image of they're gonna want my wife potentially or want my daughter into certain things. So I think it's fascinating all around.
Can I share a story, man? So I remember when I moved to the suburbs in 3rd grade, right? And my parents decided to put us in Catholic school. And I was an 8th grader at this point in time, so I go to the Catholic school and I'm gonna try out for the basketball team. And I step foot on the basketball team, and it's, you know, 2 teams, A team, B team. It's 3 black guys between 30 players on the team. And the coach just was like, oh, Beckham, you're on the A team. He had never seen me play. He had never seen me touch a ball. He saw me run. He saw me jump, you know, and we're trying out, we're warming out. I'm faster than everybody else. I could out jump everybody else. So the 3 brothers were on the A team. And he started me without seeing me really touch a ball and shoot a shot. But at that point, man, I really wasn't good at basketball. Like where I grew up in Auburn Gresham, before we coming out to the burbs, we didn't have a hoop. We had like, you know, baskets. You know, we hung them on the alley way. We didn't have a basketball rim. So I never was formally trained on how to play basketball. I was just a good athlete. And when I was younger, I didn't identify that at the time. When I got older, I did. But like the assumption that the black body had this, the physical traits of the black body was automatically going to be the reason why I needed to be on the A team. And I've shared that story growing up that like, we grew up together. I liked computers. I liked tech, like my dad. I didn't know anything about basketball. And I think that we see that often where the hypersexualization, the physical dominance and the expectation of black men in particular in rooms and settings that we walk into.
Yeah, but it definitely has, those stereotypes, they shape how people approach you. Just like you said, when you walk into on the basketball court, they automatically think, oh, he's gonna have game. You can have the J's on, you can have everything on in your life, and that's what they see. And that's how society sees us. When we're approached because of these stereotypes, you're not supposed to be articulate. You're not supposed to be educated. You're supposed to only be an athlete or some type of entertainer, or you're a thug. That's how they see us. And those stereotypes, they're hurtful because when you walk in a room, you're trying to be authentically yourself. A lot of times they're breaking that down. They want to ask you. I mean, I played ball in Kansas. I had people ask me, what gang are you in? I know you're from Chicago. How many people have you seen shot? That's not my life. So, those stereotypes are really hurtful at times.
I'll say this, I think that's the flip side of it, right? Because to your point, you automatically are on the A team, but if you show up in court or you show up other places, then people expect you to be like the magical Negro, like you said, athletically, but I might go with this white attorney over you, Curtis, right? Or I may go with this other public adjusting firm instead of you, Josh. It's just those types of things are the flip side of it, I think, in many regards. Certainly detrimental. Many black men say they've been taught, I'm sorry, let me take that back. Many black men say they've been taught that masculinity equals performance. And we touched on some of this, but in strength, in sex, and control. How has that pressure shown up in your life? And what kind of toll has it taken?
Yeah, I mean, I think the toll has been the unnecessary pressure for perfection. We got in this a little bit the last episode. Like, I remember I was 27, 28, and I was walking around with this chip that I had on my shoulder for a long time. And I didn't realize why. It was the pressure that I felt to be great at everything all the time. And my parents have never done that to me, and no one around me. I did that to myself because of the unnecessary pressure of the world that is presented to us, especially when you're a black male and you are doing something in the world. There is they talk about weathering, right? The term weathering. There's a weathering that happens, a consistent and persistent stress for us to be great. It's also why like black male suicide right now in the country is spiking in amazing and abnormal numbers, and no one's talking about it because we're carrying that weight. And I think it's rooted and it stems from this concept.
A colleague of mine, insightful sister, coins this term. She too is an attorney, managing our nature, managing our nature. And, being raised, Catholic school, purity culture, a lot of us are not really in tune of how our bodies work, physically and mentally. And within that inherent ignorance just about how things work, our hormones, our emotions, the things that we put into our bodies that allow us to perform professionally, to be present to our emotions, even physically, if you will, lends us to sometimes just be these beings that kind of operate without direction because we don't really have a good grasp on what it is to be a human being, or our animal nature, not within a savage-like context, but just our nature biologically, and how when we put certain things in our bodies, when there are certain things missing, when the chemicals are imbalanced, it causes us to act or react a certain way. More specifically, the hormonal levels, and not necessarily understanding that for those who respond to their sexuality or their sexual nature, a lot of it's natural. But if it's told to us or taught to us, don't do this, or you're fast, or you are exercising lasciviousness, it's your nature. But if you don't know those things, if you don't come into your knowledge later in life after you've had what some people may say mishaps, right? Pregnancies that were not planned, or just experiences that we have not known how to navigate, or come at inopportune times, if it's sexual trauma, if it's molestation, because you did not know that it's inappropriate for somebody to ask you or do things to you, or for you to do things to other people. We have some issues here.
Anything else you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just say, I think the pressure of performance often leads to assumption more than curiosity. One example being in your career, you have this pressure to show up or to have that sense of control. So instead of leaning towards collaboration or asking for support, you're doing it all yourself, and you got the world on your shoulders, and you probably aren't getting to the best output because you have all that pressure on you. Or in romance, with the partner, instead of asking questions, about what's preferred and what's liked, which often leads to consent and more loving connection, you're assuming, which, may be worse off for you and worse off for the person that you're engaging with. Or just generally in life, being able to ask for support, ask for guidance. It's often a pressure that you have to figure it out yourself first, which can get heavy. But again, that pressure of performance leads to that and leads to assumption, because you're trying to fulfill this certain type of expectation that really isn't necessary, but it takes a while to get there.
Yeah, you said the performance piece of it, like masculinity sometimes is kept on a scorecard. How much money you have, how many women have you slept with, how much power you have, so in essence, some of us don't know or don't have the opportunity to lose. Could you imagine if you were given an opportunity to lose and not be criticized for those losses, and be able to, digest and navigate that period of time without the pressures of the world saying you didn't, you don't make enough money. Your job is you're not qualified. Those things that, the world tells us all the time. And I think just a lot of times, because the world says you can't lose, we sit in silence, and we internalize all those pressures. And a lot of that just comes out in negative behavior.
Yeah. It's interesting when you say you can't lose. It's really we can't lose, because they, majority culture, particularly white men, get the benefit of the doubt.
That's right.
Oh, he may not be qualified, but we'll make sure. We'll hold his hand. Whereas, if we're given the opportunity, which the majority of us aren't, we have to be so perfect, so pristine, that there's no margin for error.
Yeah. Well, you all are nipping at the edges, so I'm gonna jump back in and make sure that we're all on the same page. And part of this conversation is about sex.
Yeah.
Right. And as I listen to you all, I'm thinking, more and more, like, about even the pressure in that department as well, right? Which I think we talk about, like, curiosity and things along those lines. If you're in it just trying to control and all kind of stuff, a lot of times what ends up happening is it's really not a great experience for your partner at all, right? Because it's just about you and your performance. So I want to make sure that we touch on that as well when we talk about the pressure, how it's shown up in your life, and what kind of toll does it take?
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of us, if our first experience with sex was watching a porn video, and you think that is real life, and that's what you take into your relationships, and then also maybe the young lady, that's what her experience was first. The pressure to try to live up to that is it's astronomical. Like it is daunting. You know, you will never live up to what they see, what you see on TV, and what they film. So for me, it took a lot of unlearning that stuff that I saw on those videos, and really, in essence, putting it to practice and changing, the way I thought about sex and the way I thought about, what my lady actually needed. It just, honestly, it just took like unlearning it all. And you got to be okay with that, because there is a pressure to perform. There is a stereotype that the strong black man is going to come with the biggest package, or whatever you want to call it. And if you don't have that, or somebody that doesn't have that, you're less inclined to even engage and pursue a woman in that facet.
Man, I'm trying to think. You would have met him. My brother, he unfortunately was killed in 2009. But I remember he was the person I went to for everything, to kind of learn stuff and whatnot. And so, man, he was like, I'm gonna teach you like the steps to, getting something. I'm like, okay, definitely teach me the ways. Trying to figure this out now. And so he's like, well, first you gotta get it to your house. I'm like, okay, I got that much, He's like, so when you get her there, gotta give her a massage. Now, what the hell do I know? She would probably go to the chiropractor messing with me after a massage. And so he gives me all these steps and things like that. And he's like, and this is obviously a while ago, it's like VHS, like, you take this, you put it in, you press play. And you just look at her and say, let's do what they do. And I'm like, and this is my intro to you know what I'm saying? Like, what? I knew enough to know not to do that step by step. But when you think about like how we even come into the space, a lot of times we're not having those conversations. We can laugh about it now, but he was 1,000% serious, because somebody probably told him something similar, or whatever, or it just worked for him, right? So,
yeah, that was definitely like my conditioning was like growing up with the guys and having the guys around, right? And we would sit and talk about things, and like, if I think about it now, at 45, and I remember being like 12, 13, everything they said was wrong. Like, it was wrong, it was incorrect, it wasn't even right. I mean, and I remember my nephew, and I hope, God, he's not watching this one day. He was like 14, he's 20 now. And my sister called, and she was like, brother, you gotta get out here and come talk to him. And I was like, well, why? She's like, I log into PlayStation Network, and these girls are at them on PlayStation Network. First, whole new world for me, because I'm like,
amazing.
Nobody trying to holler at me on the game, right? But then I get out there, and they're like in the PlayStation Network, the direct chat, they're dropping videos and stuff, like we said. And I had to tell them, I was like, nephew, it's like real world and fantasy. Like, there's the real world experiences that you have, and there's the feelings and emotional, and it could be deep, and we should talk about, we're gonna talk through that. And we sat and talked through it, and I was sweating talking through it. And then I was like, then there's like, that's Lord of the Rings, bro. Like, it's not, people don't fly in the sky and do flips and backflips and stuff, and that just doesn't exist that way. So having a safe space, and I was glad I was able to share that space with him, it made me think back to like, when I grew up, I didn't necessarily have that with the group that I had, and I had to unlearn, like you said, a lot of the things that the homies in the culture taught me.
Yeah, I think we touched on a few things that skipped ahead, so I want to actually go to this question now. But it says, from music to movies to social media, black male sexuality is often exaggerated or flattened. What impact do those portrayals have, not just on how the world sees you, but on how you see yourself? And I was thinking about something just as we were talking. I wonder how many situations where somebody misreads things, right? You talked about like porn and things like that. Like, you going to somebody's house to like install their cable, if you even still have cable, does not mean, I think about how many people, like, you just at the bar and somebody smiles at you and it's like, she definitely wants me. Like, really? You know what I'm saying? Like,
just had that conversation.
Probably not a thing. So I know pornography is one, one space, but just media, I think in general, we talk about the magical Negro, people being attracted for all those stereotypical reasons. I just wonder how many interactions happen because of the fact that people have been black males in particular, hypersexualized in many regards. How many situations have been misread that this guy wants me or that she wants, or guys misreading that she wants him, just based on those things. So, but from the media and social media and things along those lines, what do you all see? How is the impact of those portrayals? How they affected how the world sees you, but also how you see yourself?
But for me, like just being a black male, like, and if you're desired because you're black, to me that's not desire, that's consumption. You're seen as a product, so
Fetish.
that you fetishize. And on the flip side of that, how many places have you not been welcome in because you're black too? So it kind of, it's one of those things where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Do I lean into this? I'm Mandingo? Do I go out there and portray that, or do I try to change their mind? And so when you walk into a room, you walk into a space, it is very hard to understand that dynamic and where your place is a lot of times. If you walk into a room and there's not many black people in the room, and a white woman is looking at you, is she looking at you because she wants to have a conversation with you, or is she looking at you because now in her eyes that's something that you want? So it's just it's hard to dissect that.
Yeah, I think with the example that's popping into my mind is kind of on the flip side of that. I'm thinking of how many shots have I not taken because I may assume that I'm not being seen as like being, black enough or bold enough to, to get that attention or to say what's up and actually be regarded, if I'm not the tallest or the biggest in the room. And that's missed opportunity and shooting my own self in the foot based on those type of assumptions, what I'm saying, that really don't have any substance. Which I've outgrown that. What I'm saying, I'll shoot my shots now. But as a young boy,
as a young girl, boy, you're still young.
Very young. We found out that the last time we got together how young you were, are. Speaking of pressure too, I don't want you all to feel pressure. Everybody has to answer every single question. But feel free as much as you like. We often don't talk about shame when it comes from not fitting in the stereotype. So whether about body image, desire, or sexual orientation, have you navigated those moments of silence and or shame? I think you started to actually touch on it to some extent, which is a good way to kick us off.
Yeah, I've been real loud about this one lately with regard to QB1 of the Chicago Bears. I think folks have equated his masculinity and his performance with the fact that he wears painted fingernails. And say what you want about the young man, his masculinity and toughness and who he is as a man shouldn't be judged because he's trying to raise money for charity. I really struggle with that, and I see it being done to him by black men more than anything else. I'm always in the chats and the DM. You want to fire me up in the DMs? That's the one thing. I'm gonna sit and just like go, because I'm like, that doesn't mean anything about who he is as a man. If he wears a flower lapel pin. And I guess I feel a little bit about that because I remember when I started painting and I was in different spaces, and the questions were like, well, you've been painting your house the whole time by yourself, so what? Like, it's expression, it's creative, it's an outlet, it's a way for me to share something with the world to make me feel better about myself and how I can see the world. And I think that oftentimes with young men, we do that. I work with kids, we work with young people, whether they wear pearls or whatever. Like, I don't think that that's an equation of what you put in adorn your body with how you show up or your masculinity. But we've really gotten there as a community, and it's not healthy.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too, because a lot of what we're talking about is majority, us, those things.
Yep.
And the reality is we do have to look inward as well.
True.
Because those things are learned, right? And then it passed down to us and so on and so on. So that's a very good point. Anybody else?
Yeah, that could be honest. Just talking about QB1. I'm one of those people who I'll be honest. The painted fingernails on a football field. I played football. I'm not judging him on it, but I am against it. I do feel if you're in a huddle and you're amongst men and you raise your hands, I don't think they're paying attention to what the call is coming out of your mouth. They're making jokes, and in the huddle, in the locker room, it's a joke. It's a distraction, and that's the one thing I think. And when it comes to playing sports, that you don't need distractions. I'm not knocking him for raising money for charity. He can wear painted fingernails outside of the football field if he wants to, but I do think stuff like that is a distraction.
How much of that do you think is, not that specific example, because we're talking about grown men or whatever, but I think about boys growing up, right? I want to express myself in whatever kind of way. I felt like a lot of what my family said to the boys in the family was more about protection, because you were going to get beat up. Because if you were young, let's say with painted nails, then you automatically were gay. And if you were automatically gay, then you're going to be, essentially punished for that in many regards. So I wonder how much of it, I'm not saying that it's healthy at all, but I wonder how much of it is rooted in trying to protect the young black male from being ostracized or physically harmed because of what society says about whether it's painted nails or being gay or whatever else.
But we know he's physically gifted. We know he can do more than 99.9% of the
All
men
of us,
on
for sure.
Yeah, definitely. That's not in question. So I think it's just little things like that, and I don't think he's being shamed for it. I just think in an arena where it's the gladiator mentality, that's something that's just frowned upon.
In times of political turmoil and economic uncertainty, telling the stories of our city and neighborhoods is more critical than ever. At CAN TV, we do just that. But with shrinking budgets and pressure on independent media, the future of hyper-local news is at risk. Your generous financial support ensures that we can keep shining a light on what matters most, right here in the city of Big Shoulders. Visit cantv.org and donate today. The power of community television depends on you. You, me, we are CAN TV.
They say television is about sitting back. We say it's about stepping up. Your block has stories worth telling. Your neighbors have voices worth hearing. Chicago has a heartbeat worth sharing. Stop watching their world. Start showing yours. It's time to tune in and be seen. CAN TV, always here, always yours. Experience the power of community television.
But taking it to your point, right, and it makes me think about what we do to little boys who may show up and want to play with the doll, right? There's the world that we have to prepare our young men to survive in, and that's a real thing. That's a real thing. And there's also then, when you do that, what happens to them from the shame, from the way they're then conditioned, from them growing up and feeling the need to either repress certain things or be closeted or not be able to speak and share things, their lives with their family, their friends. I wonder what that does, and is there one that outweighs the other with regard to the risk and you're protecting one side to then cause significant harm to the other? And I can't answer that, but it does make me think that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, you talking about playing on the doll. So I have a son who's 5, daughter who's 7. He plays with her toys sometimes, and I have to catch myself to make sure, I'm not looking too deep into it. I'm not, judging him for it, because to speak to your point, we do have to prepare, especially our little black boys, for 2 different worlds. The world where he's loved, he's safe, he's heard, and then there's the world where he can go outside of these doors, the people don't feel the same about him. And it's dangerous, because I don't want to pull who he is out of him. I don't want him to create a person outside of the doors that is not, again, authentically him. But it's a hard thing as a father to understand that, yes, he needs to be protected, but also he needs to grow and form his own path.
I'll say this, having a daughter, I think about the fact that we're also preparing, you know, young men for relationships and things down the road as well. And to your point about how much we're helping them by protecting them, so to speak, and how much we're harming them with that same protection. I really want my daughter, you know, to be with somebody who can be himself, genuinely. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want him masking who he is and those types of things, and not being able to be fully present with her, especially as she chooses a life partner. You know, I very many situations. I know I was, you know, I've been in it myself where like you find out like this is not who I thought that the person was, but I know there had to be plenty of people who said the same exact thing about me because I wasn't showing up as I should have. So just something to think about. Anybody else have anything to chime in?
Well, yeah, I just add, you know, this kind of goes back to the piece on performance, but performance isn't sustainable. So to that very thing, you know, when it comes to dating, I may think, you know, that I need to show up and be the baller and, you know, hold it all down. So I'm showing up with flowers. We going to the nice restaurant, da-da-da. And then, you know, a couple months go by and I'm like, oh wait, you know, that was just to get you. Like that ain't, you know, can we just stay at home? And then, you know, and then I'm mad that an expectation is now on me based on what I performed, but wasn't able to keep up. So again, going back to I guess I'm throwing out all the examples of how you shoot yourself in the foot. You know, going back to like,
Keep
you know,
moving.
if you can really, you know, make sure that you are being yourself, it's a courageous thing to do, and oftentimes because of the society we're in, it's uncomfortable, but you know, it works. It works.
And just to add there, I think we're in a time right now where, as a community, as a Black community, we really have to be thoughtful about saving space and creating space where we can show up as our full selves. Because we're walking into a world right now that has shifted drastically in the last, what number month is this? 10 months. And in terms of this idea that we had gotten to a place in the last few years of like, be your full self, bring your full self to work, show up how you show up, that has gone the other way. You know, and so I think like if we don't have a community and a safe space where that's real, we already said we still have to interact with majority culture. We go to work, we show up in that way. It's important to have a place where I can just be. I can be whatever that is. I can be amongst my people. It's why this room and this circle is important, so that we can actually have these conversations. Because I've never had this dialogue with my friends sitting at the barbecue or at the barbershop.
We talk about that all the time, just having that space and just being able to, like you said, just be. And to have that brother, you know, Curtis will call me and just be like, I just want you to know I love you, bro. And you know, and I've had friends all my life. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
I'm working on it.
So you know,
I'm trying.
you know. So yeah, to your point, the safe space. We back in the day, joking and jabbing. That was how we showed love. But a lot of times those jokes hurt, man. Like they hurt, and you laughed it off, and deep down inside you were like, I want to punch you in your face, but you couldn't do it. You had to laugh it off because that was the manly thing to do.
But everything that's funny has some root of truth. That's right. The commonality.
Pay attention to the jokes.
Absolutely. Right? Now we're getting somewhere. So for many men, especially Black men, you knew this word was coming. Vulnerability can feel dangerous, even in relationships. So what does real intimacy mean to you, and how do you practice it without fear or performance? I'll say this. I don't know if this is only related to romantic relationships. So I'll kick it off and just say, I think I said this the first time we sat down. You know, a lot of what I've learned is really with my daughter, being able to like let my guard down because I need to, so that she knows that I'm human. I want her to still think I'm superhuman, but I need her to know that I'm actually human. So for me, I would say real intimacy for me means genuinely just being who I am. You know, my trials, my triumphs, you know, my fears, you know, being honest about those things. I remember my daughter said to me on a road trip, Dad, what's your biggest fear and it can't be about me? I said, sweetheart, my biggest fear in life is honestly to look you in the face and I'll let you down. And I said, but you never asked me a question you want me to ask you. She said, I said, so what's your biggest fear? I'm gonna get my period while I'm with you. I was like, yep, that's my biggest fear. Got it. So I said it to lighten things up. As you all talk about vulnerability, okay?
Yeah, I think for me, it is communicating and being open in the times where I don't know. I think for a while, whenever things would get hard or things would get tougher, I'd be going through something. My go-to would be to isolate, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like that's the time that I need to be not talking to anybody and not picking up the phone. And I'm really working hard to understand the difference between solitude, whether it's, I'm trying to get right spiritually, I'm spending time with myself, I'm taking care of myself, whatever, and isolation, which is like running away from being seen. And I think that's something that's put on us as Black men, right? Like, yeah, I can be open and vulnerable after I've figured it out myself and feel confident that I've worked through it, but really working if I'm confused or not feeling well and don't have the language for it, recognizing that that's a moment to pick up the phone and actually say, hey, I just need 5 minutes to just talk nonstop because I don't really know what's going on. And oftentimes that gets me to a solution a lot faster than, a 5-minute chat to get my words out. Works a lot better than 5 hours, no phone, isolated, trying to do whatever I think may help me do it alone.
Yeah.
It's still kind of like vulnerability for me is a work in progress. I'm trying to work to the point where I don't see vulnerability as a danger, and I see it as more of a right, and I have a right to lean into that vulnerability and not be judged for it. And having children and having the relationship I have with my wife and the space that my home creates has allowed me to build on being vulnerable. I don't have to be Superman all the time. I don't have to have it right all the time. I don't need to fix it. Sometimes it doesn't need to be fixed, it just needs to stay broken, and then we can put the pieces together at some point in time. And that's a real hard thing to do.
Yeah, like you, John, I'm still learning that, man. Transparently, I've had this air of like, I've always gotten it right in my life. And that's just, one of my mentors uses the term superordinate achievers. Like I've always wanted to be the straight A student. I've always wanted to be the thing. And what started to crack that thing was when I got hurt. I got hurt in a carjacking, attempted carjacking, and I lost vision in my eye. So I had to have facial surgery, eye surgery, and I was at home by myself taking prednisone. And if you've never taken prednisone, what it does to you in high doses is like steroids. Like you go through these extreme emotional shifts. And I remember when I first started, I was hurt. I was a little bit embarrassed. I got hurt and didn't know why this happened. I was sad. And I'm taking this prednisone, and I would take it in the morning, and I remember thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. And I told my sister, and she started calling me every day at that time. And she would check on me to make sure I was good. And she would send me gospel songs. And she's like, brother, this is a phase. Be strong. This is a phase. You're okay. And I told her, because I really didn't have anybody else I felt comfortable telling. I didn't want to tell my parents. I didn't want to worry them. And I didn't think my friends would really understand. And I was dating somebody at the time, but it was new, and she didn't live here. She was in Latin. And I was like, I don't have anyone to go to. But in doing that, it allowed me to start to heal and go through like the healing process and the journey. And what I realized in that moment was that I owed that not to her, but like to her and to the woman I was dating. And it's okay to do that. It's okay to not be the Superman. You know, I wear a Superman t-shirt when I work out. Like in my brain, I'm supposed to be, Black Clark Kent. But we're not. Yeah. We're not. And we hurt. And we have challenges and we go through things. And so, I'm still learning how to do that in like romantic relationships. I'm still learning. But I was really grateful for that lesson in that. And sometimes I think, you never know why things happen. I think there were a few lessons I got out of that moment. And one of them was that like, we talked about this in the first episode. I think you said it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. I think for me too, part of jumping to romantic relationships, part of what has helped me, and Josh knows the ups and the downs, and you all do as well, but part of what has helped me is that my lady and I attend church together. And so there's nothing that makes me feel more vulnerable than my relationship with Christ. And just remembering, like, I mean, if there were a comparison, I mean, it's not, right? Like, I mean, I am absolutely flawed. I am absolutely human. I am nowhere next to perfect. And that kind of relieves me from some of that pressure to be super whoever. Because I know that there's no way that I'm gonna measure up in that regard anyway. But also, you know, he loved me first. You know what I'm saying? So there's nothing I can do, you know, in that regard. So that helps me out to be, I think, a little more vulnerable. We got a couple more topics after this. Yeah, go for it.
That intimacy piece, I think that was one of those things I had to learn as well, even being with my wife. Intimacy doesn't equate to sex. Intimacy is being able to open up and say, I'm hurting, or I'm sad, or just sit there and rub her feet, or those types of things. So when we talk about intimacy, I think as men, we need to understand it doesn't necessarily end with you laying in a bed. It starts with the mind most times. And I learned that the hard way, but I learned it and it's been fruitful.
Okay. When did you first realize that healing was necessary, that you needed to reclaim your sexuality from the stereotypes that have been placed on you? And then follow up to that would be, what does that healing process look like? Or have you thought to yourself, hey, I need to heal from this in many regards? I would say for myself, I've not given it thought until, you know, I was handed these questions.
Somewhat jarring, but we're evolving, becoming present to what it means to be romantic, vulnerable within, you know, the marital relationship, and even outside of that. How you share space, share experiences with people who you care about. Is I think, perpetual work in progress.
Yeah, I hadn't thought this through until the questions came, right? Like, what does that actually look like? You know, that second part of the question in the journey. But I love the word, I love evolution. And I think with age and growth comes evolution.
Sure.
You learn different things. We were talking a little bit, you should. Not everybody, it's not absolute. We were talking a little bit before about, like, someone sent me a meme and the question was like, have you been loved well romantically? And I think oftentimes folks who have never experienced being loved well show up in ways where, like, healing is required. Because then you get someone that loves you well and you don't even know how to receive it. It's like, I don't even know what this feels like. So I gotta be open and I gotta share with you. And I gotta show you this other, you gotta see all of the gook, and you still gonna love me? And I think just the necessary healing and the journey through that will get us to better places and better relationships too.
Yeah. Well, I said no pressure for everybody to answer every question, but I somewhat lied. This last one, everybody is gonna answer at some point. If you could redefine what Black male sexuality means for the next generation, free from myth, shame, or fear, what would that definition be?
That's deep. I guess for me to reshape it, it would just be no pressure. You know, if you want to be strong, be strong. If you want to be weak, be weak. If you don't want to go to the gym, don't go to the gym. If you know, don't want to sleep with 1,000 women, you want to keep it with one woman, then that is up to you. You don't have to be pressured to be something that you don't want to be. And that's what I believe society has done now with social media and with the instant access to everything. Everybody thinks there's only one way to do it, and there's not. You know, you can love after being hurt. You can also be hurt after being loved, and you have to understand that journey is part of it. Whatever it goes, the ebbs and flows of life, the ebbs and flows of love, the ebbs and flows of, you know, a relationship. It's a journey, and, you know, embrace that journey and understand that you know, you don't have to conform to the stereotypes. You know, could you imagine a world where our boys don't have to unlearn anything because they've been taught the right way from now?
Since we have a representative from the younger generation, the next generation, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, I think, honestly, my mind, you know, connecting to this was also still connected to the healing question. And I was just reflecting on, you know, this experience that I had with a partner where basically I felt shame for not doing something and apologized. And she expressed that that wasn't even something that she's interested in or desired. And that was like a big moment where I was like, wait, what? Like I felt all this shame and I didn't even ask that question of like, wait, what is it that you like and how do I show up in that way? So when I think of, you know, redefining Black male sexuality, it goes back to that theme of like, you know, curiosity, but also acknowledging and embracing difference. Like Black male sexuality isn't me doing everything y'all doing. It's actually me doing me and coming together with like my fullness and someone else's fullness and then like moving from there. So really like encouraging and embracing, that self-reflection and that individuality instead of the that kind of like group think and pressure of performance to be the same, because that's pretty counterproductive.
All right. The two of you, rapid fire, you get the last.
I'll be
last
quick.
words.
You took it, but I'll just throw a little bit more on it. Agape love, whereby we see the humanity in others, even if it's not reciprocated, that we're being loving, we're being kind, intentional in our relationships, and that it's not even so much being tunnel either. The myriad of relationships that we're in, romantic, platonic, even in situationships as well, but that there's a current of respect.
Yeah, quick.
Yeah.
A space for emotional, physical, and psychological safety.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'll say what my great grandmother used to always tell us was just to down on self, be true. That's how I would summarize it. To down on self, be true. Man, I appreciate y'all, man. I was a little intimidated by some of these questions. We got through this. But we got through it together, man. We made it through together, man. I appreciate you fellas, man.
Right now, funding cuts and cord cutting threaten the future of local media. But Chicago cannot afford to lose its only platform where every voice is heard. Since 1983, CAN TV has given everyday Chicagoans unfiltered access to tell their stories, hold leaders accountable, and keep democracy alive at the local level. But we simply cannot continue without your help. Consider making a financial gift today, because if we lose local voices, we lose Chicago.
For far too long, Black men have been defined by what others said they were. Myths built out of fear, control, and misunderstanding. But tonight reminds us that real liberation comes when men begin to define themselves, not by stereotypes, not by expectations, but by truth. Freedom isn't found in performance, it's found in permission. The permission to be soft, strong, emotional, sensual, spiritual, whole. And as we heard tonight, healing starts when shame ends, when brothers can look at each other and say, you don't have to carry that weight anymore. To every Black man watching, your body, your heart, your story belong to you. And that's not just power, that's peace. Thank you for making time in your day for this critical conversation. Until next time, keep showing up for yourself and for each other.